Welcome to Adaptation, the book to movie podcast. I'm Nate.
And I'm Chris.
And today we are discussing Push by Sapphire and its film adaptation Precious, directed by Lee Daniels. But before we get into that, a couple of quick notes. First of all, much like in our Color Purple episode, which I imagine we will probably evoke a handful of times in this discussion, Push is a novel full of really difficult content to read, abuse in all forms, really inflicted on, in particular, a young Black woman. And Chris and I want to make sure that if you're sitting down to listen to this, that you're prepared to hear conversations about those things, because they're really, it's really brutal. And we just want you to know that you can take the space that you need if you need it. But before we dive in, how are you, Chris? What have you been reading?
Good. I am doing well. Beautiful and sunny out here today. Right after we got done, literally right after we got done with our last episode, Rebecca, I hit the road and did my 30-hour quest across the country from Denver back to Brooklyn.
Nice.
And in that drive, I went cover to cover on the second book in the Mistborn series, a Brandon Sanderson, called The Well of Ascension. Are you up to date on your book talk on our boy Brando Sando?
Not these ones specifically, but that name, Brandon Sanderson, has been, I've heard it 1,000 times this year. 1,000 times.
He's the boys of our age version of the Sarah J. Maas and Fairy Smut Realm.
Okay.
I mean, I love those books, but stereotypically attributed to the female audience. These are all of the boys in my book club absolutely love him. I do not dislike him. I just don't necessarily understand the hype. But undeniably, the dude pumps out books, and they are pretty overwhelmingly well received.
Okay. Are they also fantasy and sort of sexy and things like that?
Fantasy, not sort of sexy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, bummer. But yes, fantasy. He does very cool world building. I don't know. It was the perfect book for a 30-hour road trip because it's fun, exciting. It is an intriguing world, but also absolutely not going to be offensive or difficult emotionally in any way.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's exactly why they become so popular. That accessibility,
Yes, 100%.
But I think you and Jay mentioned him in the last episode. He may have come up a few other times this year, but I mean, I've even heard his name like on TV and in the news. He's a big deal right now.
Huge. Well, I mean, when I say prolific writer, the quantity of just like words per day published and selling is extraordinary, absolutely insane. I don't even know how many he's put out at this point.
Is he like a James Patterson type? How was it James Patterson that always had like 2 books a year? And you're like, how did this? What is this new book? How could you possibly?
Right, you're more? Like, how? Okay, so Mistborn Saga has 7, Stormlight Archive has 5. Here we go.
Oh, I've heard
most recommended books.com, all 79 Brandon Sanderson books in order. 79. Well, and these are not small books.
I mean, good for him for being able to communicate all of those ideas,
And it works. It's not lazy writing. It's not was it Danielle Steele? What was the mom novels that were like, okay, swap out a couple names and turn the plot slightly this way and put another one out?
Yeah, it might have been Danielle Steele.
But I mean, your comparison, James Patterson, Clancy for a while there.
Yeah.
Again, not saying any of these are bad writing. If you enjoy them, you really enjoy them. Mm-hmm. But Sanderson has found himself a place. I've never been huge into them, but Something for the road. It worked. It was good.
Yeah, good, good.
What's been on the TV for you, or at the theater, I suppose?
At the theater, at home, I've been watching a lot of Spielberg movies because I'm so excited. Next weekend is Disclosure Day, so I've been watching a lot of Spielberg at home. But at the theater, I went and saw. Let's see, I'm looking through my letterboxd here. I Love Boosters. Love that movie. Really fantastic, about a group of shoplifters. It's really just like a leftist fever dream. It was so awesome. I saw the Backrooms movie. Have you seen ads for this?
I haven't seen the ads for it. I've seen the meme responses.
Okay, so were you familiar with like I don't know what you call it, this like online thing that was Backrooms before the movie came out? Okay, so this YouTube guy, he's 20 years old, the guy that directed this movie. So,
Wow.
which is insane. And he's so brilliant. I've listened to several interviews with him and he's so I'm like, how are you almost a decade younger than me? You sound so much more adult and put together. But anyway, he started this video series. It's all about liminal space and how spooky it is. And so this movie is about people crossing into this, I guess it's a new dimension. I don't fully understand it because it's kind of one of the, it's very internet coded, very like Gen Z
Uh-huh.
coded. So I'm just a little bit outside of the bubble. But it, they step into this new dimension that's just like empty office space basically, but it's very 90s coded. So everything is like fluorescent lights and
Uh-huh.
carpet, and it's creepy and things are backwards, and don't totally understand it, but it was certainly an interesting watch. Probably not for you. Seems
I
pretty
gathered that
spooky.
much.
Yeah. And then I saw Power Ballad, which is the movie about Paul Rudd. He's a wedding singer whose like original song gets stolen by a pop star. Total cheesy popcorn movie, and truthfully not very good, but kind of a fun watch. And
Hmm.
he's such a funny guy, and he's so fun to watch that it was okay. It was all right.
I feel like I would give just about anything with his name on it at least a try.
Yeah, and it was, he does a lot of singing in the movie, which I think is the first time in his career that he's done that. So it was interesting, at least in the Paul Rudd canon.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much you pretty much walk away from the movie like feeling grateful for Paul Rudd. That's kind of the big takeaway. you know yeah,
I like it.
so interesting stuff, but we have something a little more serious to talk about
Oh
today.
gosh, that was an understatement.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about Sapphire's novel Push?
I got a little too into your description there and like forgot how serious the rest of this episode was going to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so reset. I will say once more to repeat what Nate already did, just in case you've gotten this far. And if some of these are difficult content areas for you, this may be your time to take the off ramp. This book, how do trigger warnings work? Contained in this book, incest, rape, rape of minors, drug use, drug abuse, family homicide, and AIDS. I don't know if that's a trigger warning. Infectious disease affecting your family.
Yes, very serious topics.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah. So just wanted the warning now before something comes out of left field for you, our dear listener. Okay. Because I also did not have any of that warning, and I tried to start this book as a before bed book, getting ready for this, and yeah, that it was not.
Sorry, should have probably prepped you for that.
I remember you saying something. I don't remember what it was, and certainly it was not in my brain when I went and downloaded it and said, time to start the next book.
Right, it was probably while I was like patting you on the head, sending you off, across the country or something. I was like,
yeah,
by the way.
I think so. By the way, the next one's a little serious. I was like, cool, thanks, bud. Yes, Push by Sapphire, as you said, written in 95, but published in 96. Initially unpublished, and then kind of, from what I gathered, quickly turned into this massive bidding war after Sapphire presented the first 100 pages, and a bunch of publishing houses. I think from what I saw, she said she was originally asking for 50,000, and it became this bidding war until finally, not Random House, who got it? Oh, nuts. I'll find it while you're talking. Eventually was bought for, I believe, 500,000. Went from 50 to
Damn.
500,000 to get the publishing rights. I
Whoa, in the
mean,
90s? Come on.
right. And did well then. And there was a fun quote from an interview I saw of her saying she moved to New York City in 97, or excuse me, in 77, was big in the slam poetry scene and said, when I saw a copy of Push on a bookshelf for sale at Penn Station, that's when I knew I had left the the small circles that I once was part of. And this is her debut novel.
Whoa, really?
Which is insane. Yes,
Yeah.
had, I believe, 2 poem collections published previously, but first
Okay.
full-length novel. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Born Ramona Lofton in California in 1950. I was waiting for what the cool story would be. What is this pen name? Why Sapphire? Perhaps it was a distillation, because again, it was just a snippet from an interview. But she said Sapphire was just what I could picture on the front of a book, way better than my given name.
Wow. I mean, first of all, her given name's pretty cool, but
Right,
so is
Ramona
Sapphire.
Lofton.
Yeah.
I am leaving out another part, and I'm trying to. It was also in a way a reference to the picture of the angry black woman. I say those in uppercase. As we discuss.
Oh,
You know what I'm
sure.
talking about.
Yeah, stereotypes.
Yes, yes. But I didn't fully understand the connection there.
Okay.
But yes, it's more than just that, but I did think that was like, hey, that's a great reason to
It
choose
really
your pen
is.
name.
And it's a cool pen name too, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The foreword to the book I had also was by another author, or the foreword to the copy I got. And they said something similar along the lines of going from seeing Sapphire around these poetry scenes in Brooklyn and around New York, and then suddenly this published book, and they were like, "Oh yeah, she did it."
Cool.
The plot: how much you want? Give you the first 20%. Give you the TLDR.
TLDR summary.
Okay. So our protagonist at the beginning of the book in junior high still, but should be in high school. She is 16. Precious Clarice Jones finds herself being kicked out of her public school, or suspended maybe. This was a long time ago, right at the very beginning of the book, because she is pregnant
Hmm.
for the second time. And a counselor suggests this alternative school, like a GED pathway program.
Yeah.
Pushing against it, a lot of family problems. I'm gonna go from our omniscient view, having finished the story, rather than from her view. It's very cool. It is from her point of view, the entire book. You find out later this is essentially her journal, and she's writing it and telling us her story.
Oh, great. Okay.
But the out of order, full blown up version is she had a child at 12 years old and is now pregnant again at 16. Both children are her father's children. Incestuous rape, and somehow he didn't go to prison after the first one. She's living at home with her mom, who is living on welfare, which is discussed heavily, especially at that time. The post-Reagan, mid-Clinton administration, this was a huge question, this idea of
Right.
welfare queens, and are people just living off the system, having more babies, which of course has been debunked since,
Yep.
but was a huge thing then. this was like the new thing to go after Nancy's war on drugs didn't go so hot. Nancy Reagan, not Nancy,
Right.
my mother. To clarify.
I know. I'm laughing because it all goes back to the Reagans.
I know. Oh my gosh. Screw them.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodness gracious. So she does. I'm skipping parts here, and I'm not going to say when I'm skipping parts. This is really as quickly as I could get through it. Starts going to this school, starts getting more support. She is functionally illiterate when she gets there. Tests at a second grade level for literacy skills. Again, we find out later this test automatically gives you a 2, even if you don't put any answers. So it could have been lower than that. Mm-hmm. And finds this group at this alternative school. And there were some excerpts at the very end. I should have done more digging. I believe this is based on at least the lived experience of our author, Ms. Lofton, Sapphire, teaching at an alternative program in New York. And there's a brief excerpt that I think was a real student's writing. I could be getting that wrong. I believe that's what it's based on. Otherwise, this is based on lived experiences, but not a true story, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But she meets all of these other students, and it is slowly revealed that they are all also having these very adverse, truly childhood experiences. They're all under 18. And it is the author, the author from the book's perspective, the protagonist's journey, Precious, coming to terms with these things, finding out, eventually getting out of her mom's home. Her first child is born with Down syndrome, lives with her grandma, has her second child. Since she quit attending the public school and went to the alternative school, her dependent check from welfare is cut off from her mom. So when she goes home, her mom attacks her, not for the first time. And so she leaves, finds her way to a halfway house, is raising her infant, and just it's this simultaneous journey as we watch the very impressive and motivational quest that she has, this determination to learn to read and write, to fight through her experience with the education system, as more and more things are discovered, that her mom was also raping her, that her dad died of AIDS, and she goes and gets tested and finds out she also has AIDS, of meeting all of these other girls in the program and learning their stories. Just very brutal, and yet also, as we know, is absolutely happening in its various forms in a city near you, wherever you live. Such a fast. It does end at kind of a unique moment. We're given the classes book coming out at the end, and there are a couple of things sort of coming to a head in the plot that are not shared with us, but I think that's okay because they are besides the point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And my understanding, if I can interject here, is that there is I don't know if sequel is the right word, but a companion novel that is from, am I getting ahead of you here?
No, continue.
It's from the son's perspective, her second born.
Yes, there's a sequel from Abdul's perspective.
Abdul, that's right.
Titled The Kid. Yes, and I'm very curious about that one.
Yeah.
But essentially, from what I saw, she did not write this with the intention of writing the sequel. It was received so positively that she decided to write the next one.
I can believe that, especially coming from a poetry background. There's that sort of like holistic performance. What am I trying to say here? Like completing the story. There's more to it. There's more elements than just what you're consuming on the surface level. So I can see her expanding, you know?
Yes. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the book is very evidently, I think, written by a poet. We have a lot of, it felt almost jarring initially. We have a lot of Precious's personal poetry woven in. Oh, and you're kind of scratching your head initially because you're like, so you're going to tell me this girl hated school, has literally only just now learned to read at 16, and then also dove straight into writing poetry? But
Yeah.
also, there is a very raw and real aspect where the teacher says, poetry doesn't have to rhyme. The classic thing that I think all of us had to be told at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just telling these heart-wrenching, not stories, essentially details of her personal timeline,
Mm.
but the punchiness, the lack of punctuation of poetry, the way that you can manipulate it physically on the page, makes it such a brilliant outlet for it
Yeah.
that you can very reasonably connect the dots for yourself and say, oh, she's had this great teacher at the alternative school, Miss Rain.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, she had told her, maybe you would find expression easier in poetry. That's as much as the plot as I want to go to right now. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
So there are two aspects that I think are very cool within this book. The first one, much more surface level. The writing tone, the style and dialect chosen um, is, well, probably the only simple thing to talk about. And we've already touched on it. The protagonist is illiterate at the start,
Mm-hmm.
and we see it in the writing. She includes how she's spelling, or well, lack thereof, inability to spell these words, lack of knowledge of these higher tier academic words.
Cool.
And as it goes, she's going to school, she's learning more, and her writing is getting better.
That's cool.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. And also, she maintains the same tone that she had at the beginning. It's just written more eloquently, it's just a remarkable feat of writing on the part of Sapphire to hold both of those things and achieve it, which is very remarkable.
Yeah. Cool.
And it also makes it feel so personal. I mean, you feel like you're reading someone's diary, right?
Sure. Totally.
The content is where it obviously gets much more difficult. It's been criticized, as we discussed, the number of, calling them adverse childhood experiences is like the clinical way now. That's so sanitized, but these horrific life experiences
Yeah.
that this young girl's being put through. The criticism has been, okay, you've now reached a point that's unrealistic. This is fiction. You've made this character up, and she's had two babies by her own father and been abused by her mother, and then was homeless briefly, also found a halfway house while she was getting literate and raising her second child, and then found out she had AIDS. Like, this is getting crazy, essentially, is the criticism.
Mm.
But that misses the point entirely. And I
Yeah.
think, actually, in a subtle and brilliant way, the author, maybe not foreseeing that complaint, but kind of answers it herself within the book anyway. At the end, they do the class book where everyone's writings are brought out. We hear Jermaine's story. We hear, oh, nuts. What's her shoot? A couple other characters' stories, Rhonda's, and their, I don't want to boil it down to, oh, what's their issue, but their story of how they also ended up in this place, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
again, very recognizable, real things happening around us. It can seem like a trope or contrite in written form when you have so many of them together, but
Mm-hmm.
she so brilliantly blends it as, no, they're all meeting together at this point because they have this shared goal. They want to become literate and get their GED. This just happens to be the life they've had.
Right.
Which obviously not the same extent or variety of big T trauma.
Sure.
We can't relate on that level, but this is their life story. Here she is now. And I think a lot of what that achieves by we hear bits and pieces of each of their stories all along, but by having this whole book together at the end, one, it's cool because the class is talking about putting it together, and then we get to read that.
Yeah.
It's a little meta.
That's cool.
It also, it shows us, no, the point is not that this one individual had a horrific experience and thrived and survived despite it. It's lots of people are going through lots of issues. That's not the problem here. The problem is the marginalized individuals not being seen, not being helped.
Yeah. Yep.
Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
And I wrote that I want to tread lightly here because, one, this discussion very immediately becomes we are quantifying life circumstances, right?
Mm,
Oh, who was better off, the girl whose dad
sure.
shot her mom, or right? And
Yeah.
that's not the question here.
Right.
Okay. And the second thing is, regardless of whether this is a quote unquote realistic or unrealistic lived experience someone could have, the fact is individuals absolutely are living with their unique comorbidities and intersections of difficult circumstances. And I think that's what Sapphire was trying to get across.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Oh my gosh. Some, it goes up and down, obviously. There are high points.
Hmm.
But man, some of these scenes were just so brutal to get through.
Yeah.
And oh shoot, I got ahead of myself. My final point on that was the idea of presenting us with such varied backgrounds, and then Precious finding she's putting it off, finally going with her friend to the incest support group.
Oh, okay.
I
That's
think.
not in the movie.
Oh, interesting. Okay. She puts it off, and then she finally goes with, and it's this very positive experience for her, realizing I'm not the only one.
Oh, good.
And I
Yeah.
think that was the point in this, not quantifying adverse experiences, not saying, oh, they're better off, they're not, they have received support, they have not, but having something for someone to say, I am not the only one. I can relate to this thing that's happened in my life. Other people have survived this. I can. I think there's this positivity there that is, I suppose, subtle and difficult to grasp because it is an overwhelmingly not positive story.
Yeah.
But I think that's what she was getting at, not that this one individual can survive all of these things, but that all of these things are real.
Yep.
Those of us who did not experience incest or sexual abuse or something very specific that's in this book that she named, that does not mean it's not happening. And as individuals who have not, ignoring it and not looking at it does not make it go away. In fact, it is proven time and time again that makes it worse.
Right.
So I think that was the idea behind this, and I find the criticism a bit lacking in, I think, looking at the story as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say the same thing about some of the criticisms of the movie. Some of the criticisms.
Okay, interesting. Okay,
Hmm.
okay. This is the last thing I'll say about the book, because that truly is all of the. Well, it's not. There's a lot you could talk about the book. All of what I felt it was useful for us, because there's also a point that I think becomes egregious on our part in the discussion, where continuing to reference particular scenes both misses the point and is not. I think that's a point where the discussion becomes not fruitful for society.
Yeah. Sure.
So I'm not trying to skip past those aspects by any means. They are all very real. One, in our reality, two,
Hmm.
in the story, in the text, and very graphic. I don't want to certainly not excuse it, but not skip past us discussing it. But as individuals who did not experience all of these things, I don't see any value in us digging into particular steps along this way
Totally
more
agree.
clearly.
Yeah.
There is one that I suppose I did not discuss and I think is important. This understanding of what's happening around them and in their culture. One of the individuals whose story we get and is a significant departure from the other stories is Jermaine, who is going to this group, and they all know that that Jermaine is way better, has the reading and writing skills. They're like, "What are you even doing here?"
Mm.
Went into the program knowing they were already at this level and could get a GED, but did not knew that she wanted to wear men's clothing and liked girls at a very young age,
Mm.
and is kicked out of the house for it.
Hmm.
And the AIDS discussion in particular, one, was a shock when Precious brings it up, I think just because I did not see that coming. But two, brings out what was also a shock, these prevalent notions of her and her mom both went, well, how could we have it? We have not had anal sex like homosexuals do. I'm censoring all of the verbiage heavily.
Yeah.
From how Precious and her mom say it. And so this misnomer of, oh, how does it genuinely work in society? And she's talking about it and needs to have this teacher say, what are you talking about? AIDS is not a problem just for individuals who are homosexual, nor is that a way to discuss it. And
Right.
it's, again, Sapphire just does it in such an eloquent way. If there were a way to separate it from the story, and if I had more mature students who I think could handle the content, it would be, I think, a fantastic tool for
Wow.
the classroom.
Okay.
As a whole, obviously, this would be
That's a lot.
tough to present.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was a particular story that I think was so valuable. And again, even if you think you don't know someone who's had that experience, I feel confident telling you you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Last part, which is crazy because it's a whole discussion that unfortunately is like outside of the purview for us, but was incredible. I didn't check what year. I clearly have a much, much more recent reprint of it. There's an epilogue by Sapphire talking about this book from 30 years ago now and comparing it to what was happening during COVID.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So this has to have been a reprint in the last 5 years, that she added this, and it's fascinating because she said at the time the discussion was, why couldn't someone like Precious get access to the medication that she needs? And essentially the push then was, if you were a gay white man who had AIDS, you had access,
Right.
and everyone else did not. And she drew an incredible comparison to exactly what we saw during COVID, which was exactly the same. It was not, your race that had a predisposition to responding worse to COVID. It was the access to healthcare that you have, which sounds
Hmm.
crazy when I say it in those terms that anyone would question it, but that's exactly what people have argued against.
Right.
Oh, it's insane. I'm sorry. I'm running out of steam. These are such heavy topics.
You're doing great.
But yeah, that epilogue again caught me off guard because I felt like, boy, we have really discussed a lot. Oh no, more. And yeah, it's so silly of me to be worn out from reading and discussing this. That's so dumb. But both things are true. Most of this book I have not had any lived experience with, and it needs to be discussed. We need to be reminded that this is not just fiction. This
Yep.
is happening in a city near you right now, and not talking about it does not solve that. I'm not saying that our podcast is about to solve any of these things, but ignoring it is also not the answer.
Right. And you and I have struggled a little bit to program these stories, particularly centered around Black women, which was something that we really wanted to do at the outset of this, but we've struggled to find ones that aren't like this tonally. There are so few stories that sort of rise to that level of both publication and then adaptation that are not this or The Color Purple or Tina Turner's story, which are all about women experiencing the worst things that can happen to a person. And I think there's something to be said for that, that we try to find stories that don't necessarily feature that, not because we want to ignore it, but because we also want to highlight stories of positivity. And it's frankly damn near impossible to find those. It's such a bizarre and unfortunate, I don't even know, circumstance, I guess, of living on Earth.
Living in modern United States, I would say. Well, no, that's not. I don't want to excuse other countries. You actually nearly verbatim said an argument that Precious makes in the book. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, nope.
As we discussed earlier, The Color Purple does come up moderately frequently in the book.
Does it really? Okay.
And Precious is talking about, she's got a poster of Alice Walker on her wall, and she talks about how people did not like exactly what we talked about. This fictional character, she talks about how people were not happy with the publication of The Color Purple because it portrays Black men in America in a poor light. And she's sitting there going, what are you talking about? A black man in America ruined my life.
Right.
And yeah, yeah, you said it better than I did. But I totally forgot that color purple comes up a good amount in this book.
Yeah, I think this was watching this movie for this podcast specifically was, I think, the third time that I've seen it, and it jumped out to me a lot, the similarities, not just because of what the protagonists go through, but some of the sort of extracurriculars that help them correct their course. I think there's a lot of similarities between Precious and Celie in those moments as well.
She references specifically a few things both Celie and Shug say in the book. I mean, it is a stretch because I don't know it factually, but I feel confident suggesting that that was probably a very important book for Sapphire
I'm
as
sure.
a queer black woman in New York in the 70s. And I say that out of her treatment of discussion of that book in this book. You need to know a text intimately to effectively weave it into a storyline with a fictional character you created in the way that she does.
And I love that in movies, and I'm sure it happens to some degree in books too, when characters within the narrative are watching a movie or a TV show. I love to be like, what is that? And how does it work into this? Because I know you're telling me something, even if it's just character building. I'm like, I know that you're saying something. That's such a deliberate choice. You know what I mean?
Oh, so good. I 100% know what you mean.
But on that note, should we turn to the movie? All right. We will be right back. Welcome back to Adaptation, the Book to Movie podcast. Chris just gave us a great rundown of Sapphire's Push, and I'm about to dive into the film adaptation, which was renamed Precious after the main character. And actually, we'll talk a little bit more about that rename as I dive in here.
I was going to ask if you found that fun fact.
Oh, yeah, I think it's fun. I hope it's the same one.
I'm sure you'll get to it. Yeah. We'll find out.
But the movie Precious was released in 2009. It was written by Jeffrey S. Fletcher, and directed by Lee Daniels. Lee Daniels is one of Hollywood's more prominent black directors, probably about this era. I don't think he's quite as well regarded today as he was 10 or 20 years ago, but still one of the more recognizable by name black and gay directors as well. He has done a few other movies that you've probably seen. Have you ever seen The Butler? It's about a black man that worked as a butler in the White House over the course of 5 or 6 presidents, and it was kind of a big deal because they had like a bunch. Yeah. So he directed that, and it's actually called Lee Daniels, The Butler, which I think was a really smart move because it made him sort of a household name to have his name at the front of the movie title. Most recently, he had a movie called The Deliverance on Netflix, a horror movie. It was kind of only okay. And then The United States versus Billie Holiday, which is the story of, was it the CIA that tried to like ruin Billie Holiday's life because of the song Strange Fruit? Basically, or maybe it was the DEA. It was the DEA because she struggled with addiction. They screwed her up because her song about lynching became a huge deal here in that nation. And I share his filmography to sort of highlight how this fits into it, because his storytelling is pretty much always about how Black people are affected in modern America, loosely modern, and the ways that that's been a through line sort of throughout history and not gone away despite all of the Reaganomics and things that we do to pat ourselves on the back and pretend like we're more supportive of the Black community. Anyway, I also threw in, he self-describes his directorial style. I just thought this was hilarious. A little Euro, a little ghetto, and a little homo. And I think I was like, yeah, I guess. The movie stars Gabri Sidibe, Monique, the stand-up comedian Monique, Paula Patton, Sherry Shepherd, Lenny Kravitz, and Mariah Carey. Kind of a bizarre cast, but everybody's really, really good in it. And produced, among others, by Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry. And I just share that
Okay.
to sort of underscore how big a deal this was when this movie came out. Those are two of the biggest black like media figures, public figures to kind of ever live. I know obviously Tyler
Yeah.
Perry is going through cancellation right now, but in 2009 he was a huge deal. That's a big deal to get the two of them on your movie. Lee Daniels said that he was attracted to this novel in particular because it reminded him of a childhood experience when a young woman came to his family's home, knocked on the door, and said, "You've got to help me. If I go home, I forget now if it was her dad or her husband. Oh, her mother, because her mother was going to kill her if she went home." And so when he read the book, he was like reminded of this visceral experience. And like you were
Hmm.
saying, the book presents itself as an explanation that this stuff is happening out there somewhere to somebody. And he specifically talked about not knowing exactly what the circumstances were around this young woman that came to his door, but that she was feeling these things that Precious was feeling. And so realizing that was real was a huge incentive for him in adapting this book and taking it on as a project. When he made the movie, he was expecting it to go straight to DVD because that's kind of what had happened to his first handful of movies. Like I said, he doesn't get the greatest reviews, partly because of that really strange style that he
Hmm.
described. But yeah, so he was expecting this one to go straight to DVD until it became a hit at the Sundance Film Festival, which is one that happens earlier in the year primarily for independent film. And it became a huge hit there. People loved it, put it on track for a theatrical release by Lionsgate. And he's talked a lot, Lee Daniels, about how this movie really only happened under, or really only became a hit under very specific circumstances, particularly Oprah and Perry coming on board and helping to promote the movie. Um, you know, Oprah's also had a rough few years publicity wise, but in 2009, if she was telling people to go watch a movie or to read a book, people were doing it. So that was a huge deal. Part of like, if she wasn't a producer on this, I don't think we'd know that it was out there to put on this podcast. And then
Wow.
in part, Mary J. Blige also recorded the movie's theme song and was pretty instrumental in promoting the movie because the song was featured also on one of her albums. I believe it was a single on one of her albums. So it was a lot of cross promotion from one of the biggest stars in music as well. So uh, I thought it was just really interesting that Daniels has been so vocal about the support that he received and the way people sort of gathered around this project to lift it up was really cool. Had a pretty limited rollout. It was only in 18 theaters across the United States in its opening weekend, which is really low. That happens a lot for indie films, and then they typically will like increase the rollout in the coming weeks as they see how it performs and theaters decide whether they want to dedicate screens to it. But what was really remarkable was that in that weekend, when it was only in 18 theaters, it was the number 12 earner at the box office nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah. So those
Geez.
18 theaters were just raking it in. I mean, like every showing had to have been sold out over and over again.
Wow.
So the rollout was expanded, and eventually it ended up the movie grossed over $63 million on a $10 million budget. Mostly positive reviews for this. Some criticisms point to the film's like similarities to other kind of aspirational stories, right? Like the student was not doing very well and then connected with a teacher that changed their life and then they do well. That is sort of the plot of at least the movie, and I assume the book as well. If you had to boil it down and
Yes.
strip away a lot of nuance and detail, that's sort of what we're talking about.
A lot.
Yeah. So I can see that. And then there were some criticisms as well. Like we said about The Color Purple, some people didn't like the way that there are so few men in this movie that I don't think you can really criticize it for how it portrays men. you've got Lenny Kravitz's character, who's the nurse that delivers Abdul, and then the father is barely a character in the story whatsoever. But people were more mad about this being sort of like the portrayal of the Black experience in America, right? Because some people walked away without a nuanced take on it, and assuming that this story meant what it looks like on paper as opposed to what it's supposed to mean on a deeper level, right? Which
Uh-huh.
is that these things are real and exist in our world. There were also, I thought, some interesting criticisms around the movie specifically, calling it out for colorism because Monique and Gabri Sidibe are both very dark-skinned Black women, whereas pretty much everybody else in the movie, particularly everybody else that's kind of a hero in the story, whether it's Miss Rain or the nurse that delivers the baby or the social worker whose name I'm forgetting, who's played by Mariah Carey, they're all light-skinned
Miss
actors.
Weiss.
Miss Weiss, yes. They're all portrayed by light-skinned actors, so there were a lot of complaints about colorism in this film and the way that light-skinned characters tend to step in and save the day for these dark-skinned women, or Precious in particular. Interesting. It's a tough criticism for me because this movie probably wouldn't have gotten off the ground if it didn't star Mariah Carey and Lenny Kravitz. But it's not wrong. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Particularly,
Okay.
I think a really interesting factoid in line with that is that Sidibe has not. She was Oscar nominated for her role, Best Actress in a Leading Role, and has had struggled a lot in her career since then. And Monique, in fact, won an Oscar for her role as the abusive mother, and both of them have struggled since then. They don't get great work, which is unfortunately a very common thing for dark-skinned women, overweight women, and it's
Mm-hmm.
you can get the highest and second highest honor in the land, but you don't turn around and get the career that like Mariah Carey and Lenny Kravitz have. They're musicians, so it's a little bit of a different conversation, but they're much more famous than either of those women that I have have just mentioned. So interesting, sort of how inside and out there's some real issues with colorism around this movie.
Huh. Yeah.
Ultimately nominated for a lot of Oscars, Best Picture included, and Best Director, and Best Editing. Like I said, Best Actress nomination for Sidibe. Ended up winning for Supporting Actress for Monique, and then Best Adapted Screenplay for Fletcher as well, making him the first Black person to win an Oscar for writing a screenplay. So cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, some cool, history making there. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was that this movie has sort of taken on a new life in the last couple of years through memes, particularly sounds on TikTok, which I'm not going to mimic here for a number of reasons.
Oh, I get it. I
But
get it.
that's the movie. Let's dive into our discussion questions. What do you have for me?
Yeah. I will probably just have to keep apologizing every week, but this just comes up for me so much in these heavier books that we do. The glaring difficulty I see in adapting this is the strongly graphic nature. We're given very vivid pictures and descriptions in the text that absolutely could not be made into a film. So my question is two. One, pragmatically, how do they get whatever ideas they could through to the audience? And then two, do you feel that it loses some of the effect? Because if the point was censorship, we saw the book
Right.
censored or banned in many places because of this, um, then the book wouldn't exist at all. So when we do have to censor that graphic nature, what are we losing?
Yeah. You get very, very quick flashes of what Precious goes through for the most part.
Okay.
And it's kind of, well, I should say what she goes through with her father. You get very quick flashes of her mother. It's more outright. You
Okay.
see a lot of not the sexual stuff with her mother, but the physical abuse. Her mom like
Right.
just kicking the snot out of her while she's pregnant. And that's visceral enough of an image that you really only need it once or
Okay.
twice before you're like, I can't look at this anymore. Like, I get the picture.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a privileged perspective, but that's also the perspective. If you're sitting in a movie theater or at home on your couch and are electively watching this, you're going to have that
Right.
privilege to a certain degree that the character of Precious did not have. But that's sort of one of the differences. I mean, the big differences between books and movies is that because you have that additional stimulus of like visual stimulus, that I think your body and emotions are processing things a little bit differently. I don't know that you need, I'm just exaggerating and pulling a number out of my butt here, but I don't think you need 14 instances of her going
Right.
through what she goes through in order to kind of get the memo if it's in a movie.
Yep.
Whereas a book, you might
Yep.
need more of that because you're also building character and building more of the story at once, maybe. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
The other thing that the movie includes, this might be a good tie in to my next question, actually. She has a lot of these fantasies, Precious does. And I think the fantasies are so like rich and almost over the top that you get the sense that she needs desperately to have this fantasy world. And I think that that also helps to feed that idea that she's just in the most miserable circumstances a human being could be in for the most part. So I think that's how it's addressed. I think largely like the translation to visual medium makes it maybe even more jarring because you're actually seeing it. You know what I mean? It's not
Right.
just kind of
Right.
in your head.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a rough watch
Mhm.
for a lot of reasons, but that does segue nicely into my question. The film is narrated very lightly by Precious, which I've been on this record or on the record on this podcast saying that I don't care for narration, but it works really well here because so much of the story is about Precious's interiority responding to exterior events and people, I guess,
Mhm.
including fantasies. How how is this book crafted? Is it written similar to The Color Purple, which was like a series of letters or prayers? Is this book written as if it's a book that Precious wrote?
Essentially, yeah, we're kind of reading, like, basically her notebook that Miss Rain assigned. Right, for 15 minutes every day.
Okay.
One day they finally start doing write, like, more or less your life story, and then it starts with that, and then the in between is it actually goes back in time a little bit to when she first started writing in her notebook, and she would write, sentences, and then Miss Rain would write the corrections underneath, and we actually see that. We see her illiteracy and then Miss Rain's corrections,
Oh,
respelling, and then her poetry, suddenly there'll just be a poem that she wrote. Yeah, that's how I mean, that also, made me quite curious how they did it in the film because it
yeah.
is virtually entirely besides some of these responses from other people and then the other kids' stories at the end. It is from this one first-person view,
Yeah.
non-omniscient narrator, like, the whole time, her just telling us her story.
Hmm. Yeah. I think the movie, first of all, two things. The movie really only hints at some of her classmates' perspectives or
Okay.
stories. You get to know them. We know that there's a student who's probably queer, and there's some that are immigrants, and they are given enough characterization that we can draw the conclusions we need to. But this is very much Precious's story. They're very
Yes,
minor
yes.
characters,
Okay.
and
Hmm.
they're not given a ton of time, especially individually. The class sort of does end up rallying around Precious in a lot of really important ways, but
Yep.
they're acting more an entity, the class as an entity instead of Rhonda and I don't know. That's the only name that stands out because she said it like
Rhonda,
100 times.
Jermaine, Joanne.
It's a small class in the movie. It's like 6
That's what
or
I'm
8
forgetting. Yes.
kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's only 6 people. Yeah.
But the other cool thing, when you said that some of the sort of journal entries were her misspellings and then the correct spelling underneath, when the movie opens, there's always a few credits that say like Lee Daniels Entertainment, directed by Lee Daniels, written by George Fletcher. They're all misspelled in terrible handwriting, and then text in the correct spelling comes up. It's kind of
Interesting.
cool underneath
That's a
it.
cool way to do
It
that.
is cool. And I
Yeah.
wondered if this was the first time I caught it, that it was like that. And I was like, well, obviously they're getting at her, illiteracy, but knowing that it comes straight from the book is even cooler now. I feel like that's like really, forgive the pun, I really don't mean it, but it's really precious, a really precious way to honor it. It is, though. I mean,
Yes. Yes. No,
just
it's
so
it's a
endearing.
very important part of the book the whole time. So she never figures out how to spell syndrome. She says, "My daughter is
I don't
Down
know how to
Cinder."
I don't know how to spell that either.
But the whole book, she spells it Sinder.
Okay, yeah.
The opening line, I had 2 babies by my father, Faver.
Mm,
It's very, very impactful.
yeah. Yeah, isn't I think Color Purple is kind of that way too, isn't it? Doesn't it start with
Yeah, with the tone of how
misspellings
they're
and
taught.
then
Yeah.
as she learns to read? Interesting.
There was another famous one like that too. The Harrison Bergerac? I was just talking to someone about this. Shoot. It'll come to me.
Okay.
I'll remember it.
All right. Well, what else do you have for me?
Yes. So, there may not be a good answer to this one, so sorry in advance,
Doesn't
but I
matter to
just
me.
could not stop thinking about it.
Okay.
There's an amount that I just feel flabbergasted at the end of a story like this. It is powerful. It
Mhm.
is incredibly important that we face it, not ignore it. But also, I get done with this, I finish the book, I put it down, and I go, "Okay, what now?" Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have no good I mean, you're sitting there the whole time just thinking, "Man, I wish I could help this girl." Clearly, logically, I know there's someone who is 16 and pregnant, probably within a 1-mile radius of me,
Right.
and that's it. And I don't know that there's a good answer to that. So the question that I wrote was just, how did you feel at the end of the film?
Yeah, this was an interesting one. Again, I've watched it several times. And this time I was thinking a lot about how you and I would consume this story because it is
Oh,
very important that she has a teacher that she connects with. You are a teacher and you've connected with students, not in these circumstances, but in very difficult ones of their own, and helped them, guide them through school and keep their life on a healthy path. And then I work in social services, and we see, unfortunately, I see stories like this, maybe not to this magnitude, but again, that's not exactly the point. Pretty much
mhm.
every day. My job is to make sure that people going through this know that we are here to offer help. That's my specific
Mm.
job within the social services agency I work for. So I think I have a little bit of like a safety cushion almost, where I can pat myself on the back and pretend like I'm doing something to prevent all of this because I can log on to work and feel good about myself, right? But
Mm. Yeah, fair.
and maybe there's some of that. I'm not saying you're feeling the same way, but there is an opportunity for a teacher to feel the same way after reading this book specifically
Mm.
because of the way Miss Rain is valorized by the text,
Yeah.
which is not a criticism of the text, really. It's a criticism of the way that society allows white people like you and me to do too little too late and feel too good about it, right?
Mhm.
All of that is just to say that I don't have an answer for your question. I don't know what to do after reading it besides recognize that the things that we can do, you and me, are often too little too late, and we feel too good about them. But we have to try. You know what I mean? We have
Yeah, yeah.
you and I specifically, it's so bizarre that it worked out this way, but you and I are presented with opportunities to be the Miss Rain and Mrs. Weiss in the real world, and we just have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Mm.
and I think it's
Mm.
the film ends on such like it's like ultimately triumphant. It's like triumphant with an asterisk. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it that there just isn't a there's not a nice button on top that leaves you. It's not a
Mhm.
feel good story. The way like Color Purple, especially the musical version where they all hold hands and sing at the end is a little
Uh-huh.
bit more of a feel good, ultimately feel good story. So I don't know. I mean, I think the most important thing is just to recognize, like you're saying, that these stories are out there, and they're out there just like this one. They're out there in fractions of this one, and it's just our responsibility as citizens of Earth to try and put forward what we can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's honestly more answer than I expected.
What were you thinking? I mean, were you just sort of
I didn't even try to guess how you would answer. I
okay?
just couldn't get the question out of my head, and I was like, "Fuck it."
Well, and that's yeah, and that's I mean, like I said, it's not a good. What I have is not a good answer. That's not going to save the world or solve this problem. But I don't know. You're not supposed to walk away being like, yeah, that was a great evening of reading or movie watching. You know,
I did not enjoy a minute of reading this.
right? And you're not supposed to. And I think maybe
No, no.
that's the takeaway.
And some things, obviously, it feels like, you can abstractly help. Obviously, we all know things like cancer and AIDS are horrible and we want to solve them. So what, you send some money to a researcher who can do something, I don't know what.
Yeah.
But like, okay, logically, this is in fact, unfortunately, not fiction, and there are minors out there who are being raped by family members right now.
Hmm. I
I
mean,
mean, I guess it's not my job as an individual to stop that, but also, what if I wanted to? What do it's like absolutely unanswerable. How do
right,
Clearly, I presume all of the people that I love and care about and am friends with know, hey, I shouldn't and won't do that.
right.
I don't know. I don't Yeah.
I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, and we'll look back and thank Sapphire for illuminating it. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And this next question's not going to be any easier.
Oh gosh.
Tell me a little bit about how colorism is addressed in the book. And I'm asking
Oh.
because, like I said, it was unavoidable is not the right word for the movie, but the movie probably wouldn't exist if it didn't sort of exploit colorism. And
Mhm.
I'm just curious, given how reverent Lee Daniels seems to have been to the text, I want to know if there's maybe some context that didn't translate.
Well, actually, it's interesting. Essentially, everything you described is what the book was, and people just didn't like it. But
Hmm.
they discussed it more explicitly within the book.
Okay.
First of all, and I might not be remembering correctly, but if I remember correctly, I believe the nurse Lenny Kravitz plays was a woman in the book, so they just
Oh,
outright
funny.
changed that.
Okay.
And then I don't know if they said her race explicitly, but I feel in my reading, I felt very certain Miss Weiss was white.
Well, it is a
So,
Jewish last name, right? Or
Weiss,
maybe Eastern
at least
European.
Central European,
Yeah.
yeah. But it comes up constantly in the book. She's talking about how much easier it would be if she were lighter skinned, or her fantasies about, like you said, having this cute light skinned boyfriend or being lighter skinned. The friend in the program who's there because she became a dope addict because her dad shot her mom. It is virtually the entire storyline of hers, which is such a not footnote, but very small portion of the collected book at the
Right.
very end,
Right.
where her mom is Latina, her dad is white, and her dad gets so angry at her mom and says, "Quit speaking Spanish to them. Look at our skin. She looks like me, not you. My kids are white." Like, it is, colorism is addressed heavily within the text. And so it's almost comical that it's a criticism of the movie, because they, from what I'm hearing, Daniels did stay very faithful to what those characters were intended to be.
Yeah.
They perhaps just did not speak to it so explicitly.
Okay. I wondered if that was the case. On that note, tell me what you would rate this book.
Yeah, I gave it a 4. The writing is absolutely brilliant. I mean, yes, I did not enjoy, as in it's not this fun little fantasy novel to fall asleep to, but I did very much appreciate reading it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only difference is it's, a genre that I've read so little of. It wouldn't be a 5 for me. Like, I'm actually very interested in reading her sequel now,
Oh,
but I probably wouldn't return to this text.
sure.
So, not a 5 for me.
Okay.
What about the movie?
I gave it a 4 as well. It just wasn't perfect for me because the second half of the movie is essentially her. It doesn't skate through the abuse, but a lot of time is sort of like a light switch. You know what I mean? Like, she gets out of her mom's house, and I
Mhm.
understand how big of a deal it is to remove yourself from that situation. But the movie
Mhm.
sort of skates through what challenges would have come next. You know, her becoming more literate is not extremely prevalent in the movie. But I
Oh.
know that would have been something she really, really, really struggled with. There's like one or two scenes where she's
Mm.
working with Miss Rain on reading, and one of those early scenes, she's struggling to read the word. I forget if it's eight or A-R-E, or A-T-E. Uh, and if that's the case, that is very, very illiterate, right? And then we kind of drop it because it's because we're focused a
Right.
little bit more on the legal situation to get her children back into her care and some of the other
Mhm.
things. And you probably couldn't adapt the novel one to one to film because it's too much, right? Too
No.
big. But
Yep.
I just felt like that interiority was not honored, I suppose, as well as it
Mm.
could have been. Yeah.
So really, books are indeed superior to films.
In certain cases, I can see how this one maybe works better than
Mm.
as a book than as the movie.
Mm.
But I will say that it's still a good movie, and I think that like Lee Daniels' style particularly works for this
Mhm.
story. His visual style is very gritty and like
Uh-huh.
works really well for New York in the 80s. And the one thing that stands out to me that also stood out to many of the people that wrote reviews is that the performances across the board are just fantastic. I mean, even down to
Mm.
I still can't believe that Mariah Carey is good in this movie because she's just such a larger than life figure for her to like strip down to this like
Uh-huh.
no makeup role and be good at it. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
whoa, that is crazy. And same thing, Lenny
Yeah.
Kravitz is super I mean, of course he's charming. He's Lenny Kravitz, but
He's Lenny Kravitz. Yeah.
it works so well in the movie. Yeah, the performances are just outstanding. So I keep rambling in this episode. It's my turn apparently instead of yours.
Uh-huh.
But 4 stars is the final verdict there.
Well, keep rambling. Who would you recommend this to?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I think this section also has to have that sort of asterisk that it is so incredibly difficult to watch and I'm sure read. It's very adult and very complex.
Mm.
So if you like these sort of gritty slice of life dramas, especially ones that end on sort of an upbeat, this is the one for you. I do think, we talked about The Color Purple. Moonlight is another movie that I think has some similarities here. Room, which is the story of a woman who was like kidnapped and
Oh,
kept
yes.
in a single
Yep.
room and then had to have a baby and raised the baby in the room and convinced him that that was the whole world. And it reminded me a lot of this story just because it was so much about how do you build what protects you psychologically. And that's a lot
Yep.
of what Precious is doing on her own
Yes.
before Miss Rain sort of opens up the floodgates for the rest of the world to get in there as well. But I also think that it fits best if you understand Lee Daniels' filmmaking style. So if you're a fan of any of his films, this is it's for sure his best film, but fits in very nicely if you do feel like his films are something that you enjoy.
Okay.
How about you? It's hard. This is a hard one.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy is it does not feel hard, but it's not as pragmatic or satisfying answer.
Okay.
Because my very first thought was, oh, no problem. Because it felt like such a pivotal scene when Precious finally goes to the support group with her friend and has the aha of, oh, I'm not the only one who's gone through this. And again, perhaps not incest, but I hope all of us have had the experience of having our struggle, what we face most intimately, personally, and deeply, and have had the joy, the reassurance of meeting others who have said, no, we see you, we understand, we are going through the same.
Yeah.
And so along those lines, in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, I've had a number of students who were 16 and pregnant.
Yep.
Cannot imagine handing them push and just going, this will help, you know?
Yeah. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I think those readers in my life who I know do not want just a fantasy novel, a fun little escape. They want to read to feel and examine the world. I think that would really be who I would say, yeah, this is the one. Like,
right.
Are you ready to cry a little? Are you ready to look at the unpleasant underbelly of reality?
Yeah. I had a similar, I guess that's sort of what I was trying to get at too, is that like, I don't know who to say I recommend this to, but it would be clear in the moment because it's somebody is going to have to present me with some very specific facts about what kind of stories they're interested in for me to be like, okay, buckle up, but
this is the one. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We've fallen into the old Supreme Court definition of porn argument.
What? Oh, you
famously in a case. Yeah.
Yeah. Obscenity, right? Yeah.
Can't define it, but I know it when I see it. Yeah. I cannot define to you who I would recommend this book to, but I know I will. And in that moment, I know it will be so jarringly clear.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what that'll be.
Yeah. I can't believe you saved that punch for the very end of the podcast. Oh, I didn't really address why it was called Precious instead of Push. I must not have written it down.
Yeah.
Mostly because there was another movie in 2009 coming out called Push.
Yeah.
But also, anybody that's in marketing knows that push is a very difficult word to build. I mean, SEO didn't exactly exist in those days, but you couldn't really look up push and find it. Sort of like, when HBO changed to Max, I was like, that's not going to work. What do you do? Google Max. And guess what? They changed their name. So similar to that, I guess. They wanted to make it.
Yeah, the exact same thing.
But actually, I think I alluded to this in the Rebecca episode. The technical name for the film, let me pull it up because I don't want to get it wrong. It's called Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire, is the full name of the movie.
Okay.
More colloquially and famously known as Precious.
Of course.
But that'll do it for our conversation on Push by Sapphire and its film adaptation, Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire. Chris,
that's such a bummer too, because Push is such a. It's apparent during the text. I love when it's quite clear that the title was deliberate and intentional.
Yeah.
And
anyway, I did read a little bit about how did it come up? Maybe in all of the research on why it was renamed. I read about what that title means and I was like, damn, like that's the story. And that's the title. But Precious is obviously a great one too, because she is the main character, but she is a precious character. Everything that she goes through, you just want to give her a big hug and
100%.
And cheer her on.
Especially when she alludes to it herself.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm supposed to be precious, but I was not precious to these parents. She says it at the meeting and I have friends now. Her friend buys her a hot chocolate and she says, I've barely known these people at all and they love me. Mm-hmm. My parents named me Precious and they never could. What's the deal? And I'm like, if that's not the most relatable part of this book for all of us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Heavy stuff. Why don't you announce what we're doing next? Because I think you'll be excited.
Yes, I am excited. Sorry, I was reminiscing on what I literally just said. Sorry in case that was unclear. I love my parents and they love me. I'm saying finding your people and feeling connected is relatable.
Right. Yes.
Okay, up next we've got Minority Report by Philip K. Dick, Adaptation directed by Steven Spielberg, and I believe a little guest for you in the mix.
Good. That'll be a fun one. I know it's one of your favorites, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Love it.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to next time. Have a good one.
Bye.
That's the show for today. Thanks for tuning in. Let us know in the comments what you're reading, what you're watching, and what adaptations you'd like us to cover. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at adaptation_pod and on Twitter at adaptpod. See you next time.